It's great to be together. We do so much good work together. I'm delighted to introduce Jen Rowland, who is the Environmental Sustainability Coordinator at Piper Shores. And Jen comes to us with a degree from the University of New Hampshire in environmental studies and a degree from master's in environmental studies from Antioch, New England. She's had all kinds of impressive positions across the whole spectrum of environmental sustainability, but particularly when it comes to the plant world, but other elements as well. So welcome, Jen. We're just delighted to have you here.
Thank you so much, Davida. What a lovely and warm welcome. Well, hi, everyone. Thank you so much for inviting me to join you today. In conversation with Jenna and Michelle about presenting to you all, being that it's such a busy time of year for me, I didn't provide any visuals other than the background of my office. Which with the papers and the detritus around, you probably get a sense represents this time of year for me, a lot going on. So I just thought I would maybe just provide a little bit of background about my position, kind of some of the, like a broad overview, I guess, of my role. And then I'm happy to talk a little bit more about how I work with residents here at Piper Shores, what that looks like and what that may look like in the future. And then, let's see, what else was I going to touch on? Really, mostly just making sure that if folks have questions about my role or the work that I do, or, some of the projects that we're working on, I'm happy to talk about that. I'll also talk about some of our initiatives here this year. So with that, I'm happy to jump in. So just for a bit of background, I started at Piper Shores only last year, and I don't know how long I can play that new staff member card, but I'm taking advantage of it as long as possible because there's quite a lot to this role, and also working in the community here, and just lots of projects. As I think you all know, sustainability really encompasses a lot of an organization's operations. And so that means there are many facets that kind of either directly fall under kind of the work that I do or dovetail with it. And so there's just a lot of folks that a lot of programs that I need to learn more about and or connect with other staff members on. And then lots of learning around the history of those initiatives here at our community, and talking with the residents who have been involved. So just a lot of learning. But in any case, I started with the organization early in 2025, and really I'm looking at my job description to just pull from a little bit, but really one of the biggest things that it really focuses on, or kind of as part of the summary of that, or of my role, is kind of taking our sustainability plans and making recommendations to the Sustainability Collaborative, which I'll speak more about in a few. That's a group that I work with here at Piper Shores, but making recommendations to that group around our long and short-term goals in sustainability, particularly with energy efficiency, ecologically sensitive design, environmentally responsible and sustainable landscape management practices, transportation and emissions, and waste management. There are other facets to that too. If I think about our sustainability plan that was developed by the organization prior to my arrival, water usage, food, and also I know waste was called out specifically in this, but those are also components of some of the work that I am connected to here at Piper Shores. It's worth probably explaining that Piper Shores worked in consultation with an organization called Thornton Tomasetti, which I know some of you are probably familiar with, to develop our organization's sustainability plan. And that was completed, I believe, in 2022, 2022 or 23, and I apologize for not having the exact date on that because I'm thinking of some of our landscaping plans as well. But in any case, that, I think the residents here at Piper Shores really expressing interest in and pushing for sustainability work across the organization laid the foundation for having Thornton Tomasetti come in, develop this plan for Piper Shores. And that one of the recommendations that came out of that plan was the hiring of my position. So just for some context, that's kind of the lead up to my role. And then obviously I talked a little bit about my role itself, which is responsible for helping move the sustainability plan work forward across the organization. I'll talk a little bit about some of our goals for this year across the organization related to sustainability, if that works. So those goals, I should say, were mostly developed by staff members here at Piper Shores with some resident input. In the future, if there's a little bit more of a runway in terms of the capital budgeting process and my position and my capacity, what I'd love to do is have a little bit more resident involvement in that process earlier on. But some of the highlights of our goals for 2026 include, and well, now I'm referencing the Sustainability Collaborative again without explaining what that group is, but I will get to that, I promise. But kind of now that my role is here, or now that I'm here in this role, one of the things we've been trying to do this year is clarify the structure and function of this group that kind of has carried the work forward to date. We're also working with competitive energy services, as we typically do, to compile our scopes 1 and 2 2025 carbon footprint data. We have a bunch of energy projects, including most of which are, I would say, are a continuation of work that has already been happening here at Piper Shores. So just to name that, but replacing windows on some of our main buildings, replacing the roof and siding on a subset of our independent homes. We're also in some of those same homes, we're replacing what had been a straight propane unit for heat to a hybrid heat pump propane unit. And I think the newest kind of addition is that there's again a subset of our residences that we are looking to do some energy auditing on, which, to be honest, is like where I get most excited, because I think those really lay the groundwork and the foundation for developing a more thorough plan to address energy efficiency across our buildings. So from my own experience of having that done on my own home, I feel like it really helped lay a really good roadmap for how my husband and I could work through those projects. So some of the other pieces in our 2026 goals include our ecological landscaping projects, which quite frankly is how I'm spending a lot of my energy right now. And I'll get to kind of how the division of work, what that looks like thus far, but later in my presentation. But for the landscaping, we're revegetating several garden beds on our Oceanside campus with native plants. We are also doing a really large meadow restoration project at our Meadows campus. And we are doing invasive plant species removal on both campuses. I'm happy to answer more questions around that at another point, but that's a big part of my work right now. Another component that I actually think is really integral to the success of these projects long-term is developing some sustainable landscaping policies to guide practices on our campuses. To date, what we have in our resident handbook, I think, is actually fairly limited in terms of guidance for residents around who does what and who's responsible for what. And I think that has been a little bit of a challenge navigating that in kind of trying to implement some of these larger projects, because I think it leaves a lot of gray areas and a lot of competing priorities that I think would be nice to clarify. Just a couple more things for goals this year include looking at areas of concern on our campus for as part of a dark skies initiative. So looking at primarily exterior lighting or some interior lighting that projects outward that can really impact negatively, not only human experience, but honestly, more importantly, wildlife and migration patterns. So we also developed, but have yet to implement, I'll wholly own this, the idling policy for our campus. I think I can talk a little bit more about some of the challenges with that and why that hasn't been rolled out fully yet. We have piloted composting in our largest break room for staff on our campus, which I think seems to be going well, but I'd love to see that expand over time. And then we also are including low flow restroom faucets or aerators as part of our unit turnover process. So those are some of the things that we are doing as part of our work this year. I think I'll just jump into kind of talking about the Sustainability Collaborative finally, and what that is here at Piper Shores. And then I think once I kind of describe that, I'll move into, I guess, Jenna and Michelle, I'll look to you both, but really I'm happy to answer questions after that. So the Sustainability Collaborative is a group of staff, residents, and outside members of the community who over time have met to support and kind of support carrying out some of the sustainability work that has been mapped out in the sustainability plan to date, and really get the pieces in place for that work to be carried out, also following the hiring of my position. So I think they really laid the groundwork and have helped bring attention to some needed projects across both of our campuses. So I think though, following towards the end of 2025, since I was hired in March of last year, I think we recognized with some folks terming off of the collaborative that there might be an opportunity to revisit how it was structured and how it was working. And part of that is, I think, because we recognized a need to get more folks involved in the work, both at the resident level, but also at the staff level. To date, a lot of the sustainability work at the staff level has been amongst our senior leadership. So the directors of our different departments here. But I think there's a move towards recognizing the value and having some of our leadership team, kind of the next level down in our management structure, take some ownership and accountability around the success and the implementation and success of some of these initiatives. So, and then we also wanted to clarify kind of how the collaborative operates, and I think make it clearer to residents how they might be able to get involved. So those were kind of some of the purposes leading to this restructuring. Originally, it was just like a large group meeting, and it's still, I would say, it's still that way because we're in the process of trying to roll out this new model, which I have to say during the landscaping season and revegetating an 8-acre meadow is challenging to move forward. But in theory, later this year, we're going to have work groups that are part of the collaborative. So let's say the collaborative's up here, there'll be these 4 work groups that kind of feed up into the collaborative. And those working groups are focused on the areas of our sustainability plan. So they're very subject specific. So we have energy and water, transportation will also be in there, food and waste, site and landscape, and then kind of the evolving thought is an education and communication group. There's been, beyond the collaborative, there's a wonderful group of residents called the Sustainability Interest Group, or that are part of the Sustainability Interest Group here at Piper Shores, which is a solely resident-led group. And the thought is that that group would be connected more explicitly to this education and communication piece, because that's a lot of what they do already as part of their work as a resident-led group here at Piper Shores. So in theory, again, what we're moving towards is that each of these 4 groups will have staff involvement. So leadership, at least 2 leadership staff members will be part of those groups, along with residents who are interested in those subject areas. They may or may not also be members of the collaborative as well. So we'll retain at least a core group of members of the, like, resident members of the collaborative, and then there will be opportunity for other residents who are just like, you know what, I don't need to attend those meetings, but I'm really jazzed about some of this energy work that's happening on our, campus. I'd like to be involved and support that and lend my expertise. So I think that's kind of what we're moving towards. So, in theory, those groups will meet quarterly. The Sustainability Collaborative would also meet quarterly, like at the 3rd month of that quarter. And really the groups, I think, are not only intended to help get more folks involved, but really support my own limited capacity in moving the work forward, right? There's a lot that needs to be done. And quite frankly, a lot of it's capital work. It's, big dollars we're talking about for some of these types of projects. So, and I can't manage that all. And that's not my job. So, really, I'm supporting I help move the work forward, but in reality, for some of these projects, I'll be supporting my colleagues in also doing their work and keeping these sustainability pieces in mind with it. So I think that's probably the gist of, what we've gotten to thus far, my role, and kind of the relationship with the collaborative and our goals this year. So I hope that provides some good foundational information.